Feel like you're always trying to catch up? We can't slow her down, but we can help you save for where she's going. We ask good questions, you get expert advice. Talk to an advisor to feel confident in your future and hers.
When Estefanio got into a great book on Audible, it gave him a new perspective. That's when he decided to change a few things.
Reveled in the very process of training and improving step by step, day after day,
Just like that.
week after week, month after month.
Okay, hello everybody. Welcome back to the stream. Hello there. We're gonna flip this on. That's not the right thing. We need window capture. It's been a while, guys, since we have logged into the internet news. I'm already getting hot sitting here. Quite a shame. I'm already heating up. I don't want to turn the fan on because I don't want it to sound like complete trash. So anyway, we're gonna read some news here that I found interesting. Got some stuff lined up, some new trending things, but I wanted to start with an article by the World Socialist website. So if you're not familiar with the World Socialist website, this is a news site written by socialists. So all the other opinion articles you read on Fox News, CNN, wherever else, it's just that, but socialist takes. So it's quite a different take from the neoliberal mainstream news that you get. So let's just break this down. But this is about Canada's ruling class exploits anti-scab legislation hailed by union bureaucracy to break strikes. And it says, Bill C-58, hailed by Canada's trade union bureaucracy and Social Democratic Party, when it came into force last year as a, quote, anti-scab law, unquote, for workers in federally regulated industries, was condemned by the World Socialist website, the website we're on. As a means of strengthening state control over collective bargaining, one, moreover, that would in practice prove to be no serious impediment to the ruling class's deployment of scabs to break strikes. While the unions used this law as a major argument to rally around Prime Minister and former central banker Mark Carney after his victory in the 2025 elections, the accuracy of the worldwide socialist news website analysis is becoming borne out of recent developments at the Bank of Canada. Hold on, I gotta turn my fan on for like 2 seconds. Alright, that's all I needed. My window's open, you'd think there'd be a breeze. No. Anyway, the Canadian International Relations Board ruled for the second time in less than a month on July 22nd that management at the Strike Board Central Bank, a key institution of the Canadian capitalist state, were in violation of recently enacted revisions of the Canadian Labour Code in Bill C-58. The CIRB ordered the bank to cease using outside contract workers to perform the duties of striking security guards at its facilities. Management had been found to be illegally using the services of security guards employed by Pinkerton Consulting and Investigation. The replacement workers had been hired shortly after the central bank had been ordered to only 2 weeks earlier to cease deployment of strike breakers from Garda Canada Security Corporation after the first ruling against them. Management cynically wrote that it fully complied with the CIRB ruling. Some 49 security guards at the Bank of Canada in Ottawa and Montreal, organized by the Public Service Alliance of Canada, PSAC, have been on strike since June 23rd in pursuit of wage and benefit increases and to retain shift scheduling rights to ensure a more equitable work-life balance. They also retained bank measurements attempts to cut their parental leave top-ups. Oh, they also are resisting bank management's attempts to cut their parental leave top-ups. Which is super fucked up, banks. Come on, banks. Or are we looking for morals out of the banks? No. Anyway. In response to the July 22nd ruling, management had insisted that it did not contravene any federal regulations. Quote, the bank contends that it adhered to the Canadian Labour Code and to the previous rulings by the CIRB. despite still not having been provided the reasons behind the prior decision, unquote. It stated, quote, after the first ruling, the bank took alternative measures to secure the physical security of its facilities, unquote. The statement went on to say the bank is, quote, the bank is considering, quote, all of its legal options, unquote, in response to the CIRB ruling. Management of the Bank of Canada has clearly taken the measure of the state-run Labour Board that has already been used as the spearhead for recent Liberal government actions to unilaterally and unconstitutionally end strikes and force binding arbitration on the docks, on the railways, at the post office, and the airlines. And this is like a major contention in probably Canada for working class people, is like the Labour Board, the board of the state that's in charge of the working class, consistently brushes the strikes and all of the leverage that the working class has and demands them to go back to work anyway. It's just it's a joke. But when it comes to disciplining employers in line with the new revisions to the labor code under Bill C-58, the CIRB prefers to limit itself to verbal slaps on the wrist. The law provides for fines up to $100,000 for violations of its regulations. Since the new law came into effect on June 2025, not a single fine has been levied, despite multiple rulings against strike-bound companies over the past year. Blatant class justice on display takes place in the context of a massive onslaught by finance capital on the living conditions and democratic rights of the working class. Chinese liberals have pledged to hike spending on the military and related infrastructure to 5% of GDP by 2035, and continue handouts to big business and the financial oligarchy by keeping taxes low and subsidies to the corporate elite flowing. This is exactly what Carney's doing, by the way. There's really no argument here with all of his. He's a conservative. Let's just be honest. Anyway, this class war agenda necessitates the destruction of what remains of the public services and welfare state provisions won in the previous periods of bitter class battles by the working class, and the abrogation of basic democratic rights like the right to strike. Yeah, the right to strike in Canada is like a joke. There is no right to strike in Canada. It's like your union sucks. Your union's bureaucracy is going to side with the feds, and the feds are going to side with this like constitutional law that just fucks you in the ass. It's like you have constitutional rights until the Constitution says, well, actually, no. No. The dispute at the central bank takes place the same time that management at Canadian Pacific Kansas City Rail, CPKC, has been attempting to parry a string of charges that it too has breached the federal anti-scab legislation during an ongoing strike by 300 signals and communication workers. Workers there, organized by the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, IBEW, have been on strike for 2 months for improved wages and working conditions. Since the outset of that strike, the union has filed complaints with the CIRB that railway management is deploying scab labor. Anyway. Oh god, where was I? Here I was. Beginning a day after the workers walked out, strikers began filming instances of scab contractors illegally performing their work in flagrant violation of recent amendments in the Canada Labour Code. A number of complaints were filed with the CIRB. 1 month later, a Labour Board finally ruled on its first case, finding sufficient evidence that the CPKC had employed illegal strike-breaking contractors at a signals crossing. It also ruled that the use of company manager to perform work normally done by union workers was legitimate. The board further stated that other complaints currently on file would be examined and ruled on eventually a case-by-case basis. The House of Commons passed Bill C-58 unanimously in 2024, even with the endorsement of the rabid anti-worker Conservative Party, whose leader, Pierre Poilievre, promised that any future Tory government would not repeal the legislation. The law then officially came into effect in late June 2025. The various union bureaucracies, as well as the New Democratic Party, were ecstatic. yeah, the NDP is part. Anyone who thinks the NDP is like fighting this, that no, they're complicit. Anyway, the NDP leader at the time, Jagmeet Singh, gushed that, quote, "We will finally pass a law that will once and for all ban scab workers at the federal level." The UPE National President Mark Hancock hailed the law as a, quote, "historic victory." Canadian Labour Congress President Bia Bursek called the revisions a, quote, "significant milestone in the labor movement." Striking workers since the law came into effect have not been so enthusiastic. A 19-week strike/lockout that began one day before the new legislation came into force saw some 25 USW organized workers at Rogers in British Columbia sidelined by the company's use of a clause in the new labor code that allowed them to fly in managers from across the country to perform their work. Devious. Telecommunication companies, airlines, railways, and logistic firms have extensive management structures spread across multiple regions, often staffed by supervisors and lower-level managers previously drawn from the ranks of the general workforce who can be mobilized at least in smaller strikes. A critical clause in the new regulations allows for such deployments. So it hasn't gotten rid of scab workers. So it has gotten rid of scab workers, but it hasn't. Right. The gaping loophole prompted NDP MP Don Davies to meekly propose legislation to remove the clause despite his praise of the code's revisions. Quote, "It's robust," he said. Quote, "If we read into the intent of the law, I do believe it would give us the upper hand. My worry is the word of law and the purpose of law doesn't necessarily always concede when it gets to the court. I do really think it's a bit too early to say, but I would like to believe that this can still be a good thing," unquote. Doubtful. Very much doubtful. In any case, it is doubtful that the NDP's milquetoast motivation will ever be put to a vote to preempt growing worker pushback on the Anti-Worker Canada Labour Code and to fill in any legal hurdles brought about by dubious use of the code. The Liberal government of Prime Minister Carney has convened an initiative to update the Labour Code. It aims to strengthen authoritarian state powers to suppress worker struggle, and his government guts public spending to pay for rearmament and war and supports big business in its drive to make Canada capital more, quote, globally competitive. Bro, my cat's on the freaking table, dude. Knocking stuff over. I was like, what the fuck? But yeah, Carney's making Canada more globally competitive by increasing worker exploitation. And that's really what it means when the leaders come out and it's like, we're going to be more competitive. That means lower wages, more exploitation, shittier benefits, more profits for the big boys, the billionaires who already have enough. What you doing? Hey. Since the election of the new Liberal government under Carney in April 2025, Ottawa has continued to use the CIRB in Section 107 of the Labour Code to issue strike-breaking orders against Air Canada flight attendants, force Canada Post workers to vote on concessions filed management offer, and threaten state intervention in a spate of other contract disputes. The move follows on from his predecessor's government, where Prime Minister Justin Trudeau cooked up a potentially illegal use of the CIRB to end strikes at the Pacific ports and the Port of Quebec, both national railways, and against mechanics at WestJet. The unions, which in every case enforce the government's back-to-work orders, are currently challenging Ottawa's new strike-breaking powers, sometimes wielded days or even hours after a strike had begun in the courts. They argue they violate the Canadian Constitution's Charter of Rights and Freedoms while making obvious points that over the past several years, employers in key industries brought contract negotiations to a virtual standstill as they awaited favorable government intervention. Which is what, always comes out. Because they have all the power. The people with the billions of dollars. I mean, the workers can only hold out for so long. Unless it's like a big ground movement. Bro, what is this cat doing, bro? What you doing? Showing the utter bankruptcy of the union's legalistic appeals, CLC President Bursk recently remarked, quote, "If you're going to break a strike, at the very least, debate it in Parliament and let Canadians see where their MPs stand on protecting workers' rights," unquote. Bursk went on to peddle the labor bureaucracy's absurd definition of the state as simply a neutral referee. Yeah, okay. Quote, "Ensuring fairness and respect for the rules." Yeah, no. The rules, there's a two-way street when it comes. It's a one-way street when it comes to the rules, okay? If you have billions of dollars, rules might apply to you a little better. Bro, cat, Mao, can you get out of here, dude? Like all over the place, man. In order to forestall any possibility that a court may eventually decide that the patently illegal use of Section 107 to break strikes is indeed a violation of the Charter and Rights and Freedoms, or otherwise place limits on its use, the Carney government now attempts with its labor code to review to strengthen its, quote, strike-breaking toolbox. Oh, review its strike-breaking, quote, toolbox. Yes. Let's get the toolbox out, baby. Carney's toolbox is coming out to break your constitutional right to strike. Proposal. Oh my lord. Holy fuck. I don't know how to be a cat owner. This cat is
By Germany, by everybody, by Canada. Canada's nasty. They are. They're nasty. People think Canada, they're nasty. People, I love the people, but they're nasty. Nasty leadership. By Germany, by everybody. We've been screwed by tariffs used against us for years by China, by Japan, by South Korea, by Germany, by everybody, by Canada. Canada's nasty. They are. They're nasty. People think Canada, they're nasty. People, I love the people, but they're nasty. Nasty leadership. And Mexico, they all did it to us. But because
I'm fucking muted. How long have I fucking been muted for? I'm just gonna go take a break. Dude, I'm so hot. Anyway, we'll get back to nasty Trump and Carney's remarks and stuff. Isn't this crazy? Polling Canada, 56% of people in Canada say it's appropriate for the government to invest in and own pipelines. Only 21% say it should be left to the private sector. Which, I don't know what to think of this, because, I mean, I know what to think of this. It's just capitalism, but state capitalism. People kind of have this idea of, because of healthcare, that, like, somehow it'll come back to, like, Canadian society. I don't think that's how this pipeline's gonna go, unfortunately, for all of us. I think Carney's cutting taxes for the rich, cutting taxes for the wealthy, people who own the pipeline, and our infrastructure and healthcare is probably going to get worse. So, you know, real rough out there. Yeah, anyway, let's just fucking get through this. Nasty Canada. Canada's nasty.
we've been screwed by tariffs used against us for years by China, by Japan, by South Korea, by Germany, by everybody, by Canada. Canada's nasty. They are. They're nasty. People think.
I can't believe you can hear the audience literally go, "Oh, come on!" Like, you can literally hear them pull back, be like, "Come on, leave Canada alone."
Canada, they're nasty. People, I love the people, but they're nasty. Nasty leadership. And Mexico, they all did it to us. But because we've been.
But yeah, Trump represents totally the white victimhood the Americans feel. America's the victim of everything. Just like the white Americans feel, oh, we're always the victim of this, of immigrants, of losing our jobs, our allies.
Isn't good.
Mark Carney jokes about Trump during Toronto housing announcement 53 minutes ago. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney announced a $2.7 billion partnership between Toronto and the federal government to build over 5,600 rental homes, including nearly 2,000 affordable units across 18 projects. Construction on thousands could start this year, targeting the city's housing shortage with modular builds and community designs. The teleprompter glitch led to his line. Unlike a certain world leader, I do not view this as a conspiracy. Sparking online cheers for his wit alongside debates on costs, past targets, and U.S. relations. Oh, he's calling Trump a conspiracy kook. Can I see this? Where's this? Here it is.
I would like to inform you that the teleprompter has ceased to function. Unlike a certain world leader, I do not view this as a conspiracy.
Wow. Damn, Carney taking shots at Trump. Elbows up, am I right? At least he's taking the shot in the public light. That'll really get the liberals going. That'll really rile it. Liberals and dude, so many neoliberals. We're all all the people in society are just neoliberals, like neo-classical libs. Like that's all we are. Most people, unless you have read social shit, but at least he's doing it. But this is gonna rally all the elbows up crowd, fight for Canada crowd. You just can't hate this little loser enough. Fuck you, Carney. Typical liberal Eastern female boomer is going to wreck in the knees hearing this. You know what? True, though. You know what? I like how most conservatives are like, Bernie's hiding from Trump, and then he says this, and they're all like, can't you get Trump's name out of your fucking mouth, Carney? You can't have it both ways, can you? You just can't, can't make everybody happy. Canada, very nasty. Anyway, we could talk about this too. Nanos polls show liberals leading conservatives by 19 points. I kind of want to talk about this because Canada who is Mark Carney's competitor? Who is Mark Carney's next up competition? Who is Mark Carney's adversary? I don't know how to describe it. Who in the Conservative Party can take on Mark Carney at this point? I don't think anybody, unless you have some sort of pocket card you're holding out, your own Mark Carney type conservative to put in with a good resume and compete like that. But I think we're missing the point when it comes to the debate of, well, who can challenge Carney? Because Carney has shifted to the right. Like the liberals have shifted to the right. Like it's pretty obvious. And that doesn't leave conservatives with a lot of room. So you have to attack them from the left, all right? So the NDP, you're still shit. I'm not talking about you, NDP. But a third party, Marxist-Leninist type party, has to come up and propose a workers' plan, a socialized economy type of strategy. And that would be a real party that could compete for the liberals and the conservatives, especially if you can explain to it, we'll use your tax dollars to go to healthcare and we'll use it to go to infrastructure, education, your benefits. We'll give you more work, less work hours and higher pay. We'll tax the rich more. And eventually get to a point where you don't need a rich middleman giant wealth gap to take down from. It would just be everyone owns that surplus and decides what to do with it. But anyway, that would be a real strategy to compete with Carney. Unfortunately, I don't think anyone's doing that. But the liberals are polling pretty hard. They're polling pretty high. But yeah, 47%, 28%. Dan Friedman. Most accurate Nanos polls yet is just all red. Here we go, newest Nano polls model out March 4th. But yeah, look at this. Like, the conservatives have no fucking, like, they have no strategy with how to compete with Carney, because they can only just cry foul and be like, he took our strategy and he's doing better with it. So, interesting. Let me just go to Fox News to see what's popping over there. Also go to Rebel News. I need to see what's going on at Rebel News. Rebel News. The gun buyback program. Let's just watch the gun buyback program, see what they got to say.
This professional 32 terabytes SSD, capable of holding the entire collection of the New York Public Library, is something you won't find at Best Buy or
All right, we're gonna watch this first, and then we'll take a break because we love us some Rebel
We are
News, don't
closing
we?
the market for military-grade assault weapons in Canada.
Remember all those emotional speeches about taking assault weapons off our streets? Well, the latest government records suggest they may have been taking a lot more firearms off store shelves than off the streets.
These are firearms designed for war, for killing people.
You can't be serious.
Isn't that the whole point? Like, oh, you can't buy a fucking murder weapon. That's like saying, like, it turns out it's hurting this company's budget that they can't sell frag grenades at market price to the public. What are we going to do about this? Like, well, maybe we shouldn't have Walmart selling frag grenades $6, you know,
About being tough on crime.
$40.
If you're not willing to be tough on guns.
The Liberals called it public safety, but the paperwork makes it look an awful lot like inventory management of stranded assets.
What is that supposed to mean?
4 years.
I like how she's supposed to make it sound like conspiracy, like they're like doing something wrong. It's like, yeah, no shit. They're gonna hold on to the supply of guns and use it probably for their military.
The Liberals have insisted their gun confiscation program was about one thing: getting dangerous firearms off our streets. The implication has always been that ordinary Canadians would willingly hand over these firearms because they had suddenly just become far too dangerous for us to own and keep in our gun safes after we are vetted daily by the government. Well, thanks to a newly released access to information request by us here at Rebel News, we're finally getting a better look at who's actually participating in this program. And the numbers tell a very different story. According to documents released by Public Safety Canada to Rebel News through our access to information filings, just 187 businesses participated in the federal assault-style weapons compensation program during its initial phase, claiming compensation for 12,143 prohibited firearms.
Okay.
Now, let's stop and think about that for a quick second.
Okay, let's think. Let's stop and think about that.
Average of 65 firearms per participating business.
Sure.
Now compare that to the image the Liberals have spent years selling to Canadians. Worried gun owners cleaning out their safes for the good of public safety. But that's not what these numbers actually suggest. They suggest something else entirely. The federal government has frequently pointed to the number of firearms declared by individual owners under the compensation program, saying more than 67,000 firearms had been declared. But declaration is not the same thing as surrender. Throughout the program, with the help of our friends at the Canadian Coalition for Firearms Rights, owners were allowed to amend or withdraw their declarations. Thousands of firearms were later undeclared as owners changed their minds. In other words, we still don't have a clear picture of how many firearms individual Canadians have actually surrendered. What we do know, however, is this. The business stream alone accounted for more than 12,000 firearms, or about 15% of the combined business claims and individual declarations, remember declarations, not surrenders, reported by the federal government. Because
I don't know, what is the point she's making here?
Thousands of individual firearms were later undeclared. The business share of firearms ultimately surrendered could be significantly higher than 15% of the program. And when the average participating business is turning over roughly 65 firearms, we're clearly not talking about grandpa deciding to surrender his deer rifle. We're talking about inventory, retail inventory, wholesale inventory, inventory that has become commercially worthless overnight. To sign our petition against the federal government's constant scapegoating of law-abiding Canadian.
Yeah, but they get the same tax break that you do as a firearm owner. So I don't really understand it. They get the same gun buyback shit that you are getting access to. The only problem is the same take I said earlier. You are inhibiting my power to sell a fucking AC drone that, drone strikes my neighbor's house at a market price. Why can't I buy a nuclear bomb at market price? You are stopping the supply of frag grenades into the community. How dare you? Need to profit off of these murder weapons.
Gun owners, while they fail Canadians in their public safety efforts, please go to handsofourguns.ca. These businesses legally imported or purchased these firearms for sale. They paid taxes on them. They expected to sell them to licensed Canadians who had passed federal background checks, completed mandatory safety training, and complied with Canada's already extensive and frankly onerous firearms laws. Then Ottawa changed the rules. With the stroke of a pen, inventory that had been perfectly legal to sell suddenly became impossible to sell. Those firearms became what's known as a stranded asset. If you're a retailer, what do? You wait for the government compensation program, not because you're making a political statement.
Can you not move them out of Canada? That's my question. If this is an inventory problem, obviously it costs a lot more to move your inventory and sell it in the USA than it is to just get the fucking tax break from the government, the buyback shit.
Because you're trying to recover at least some of the value of the inventory the government rendered unsellable apropos of nothing. And who can blame them? If Ottawa outlawed the sale of snowmobiles tomorrow, every dealership in Canada would line up for compensation too. So let's not pretend every firearm entering this program represents another dangerous weapon removed from Canadian streets. Many of these firearms weren't on the street or even out of the box. They weren't.
Yeah, so why should they be in the public? Why are you arguing that they should be in favor of the fucking in circulation in the public? Like, these mass murder weapons were barely being bought anyway. It's like, okay, well, good. Now they just won't be. Now I don't have to worry about my neighbor potentially just owning a mass murder machine and snapping.
In criminal hands. They weren't being trafficked. They were sitting in gun shops, locked in warehouses, still in their original boxes, waiting for honest customers who would never legally be allowed to own them. It's not necessarily evidence of a public safety success, right? And then there's the bigger question. If 187 businesses alone accounted for more than 12,000 firearms, how much of this entire exercise is actually functioning as a taxpayer-funded inventory buyout? Because that's what these numbers actually look like.
Totally.
Not panicked Canadians suddenly deciding their firearms were too dangerous to own because Public Safety Minister Gary Nandasangri was so persuasive that he convinced them of their civic duty.
These are firearms designed for war, for killing people. They have no place in our communities.
Businesses are disposing of inventory that politicians transformed into stranded assets. It's really that simple. Meanwhile, police agencies across Canada continue to say that
I like how she's trying to compare like an M16 assault rifle to like a snowmobile. She's like comparing like an M16 fucking mass murder machine to like your fucking like pillow
The overwhelming
If the government made your pillow illegal tomorrow.
source of crime guns is organized crime and illegal smuggling across the border, not licensed firearms owners like me.
About 90% of the firearms we seized last year came from the U.S.
Toronto Police Association President Clayton Campbell has other ideas to address gun violence.
And more investments at the border. I think ongoing enforcement and money for gang and gun investigations, they're very complex.
License owners weren't the problem before this prohibition. They're still not the problem today. They're the scapegoats. Yet billions of taxpayer dollars.
I don't think anyone's blaming licensed owners. I think it's just a thing saying, hey, you can get money for these guns that we don't want in our community. So if you have them, you can get them in for some change.
Are being.
I don't think anyone's going, you go hunting, you fucking are the reason for school shootings.
Directed toward compensating licensed owners and retailers while criminals continue obtaining firearms outside the legal market. That's a strange definition of public safety, don't you think? None of this is a criticism of the businesses, however. The question is whether Canadians were ever given an honest picture of what this program actually is.
They're only doing it for political reasons.
What the Minister of Public Safety is doing it right. He's correcting an inefficient system.
If the biggest, clearest numbers we're seeing are commercial inventory payouts rather than confirmed criminal guns removed from the streets, was this ever primarily about public safety?
I don't think you understand what a gun buyback program is. If it was about public safety, there's a public safety element. But obviously before the ban, it was still acceptable publicly to own these safely, right? So it's not much of a leap to just be like, well, actually, never mind. Nuh-uh. Just, we'll give you your money back. We'll give you a certain percentage back, tax rebate. Go buy a legal gun or something. I don't know. But like, I don't think anyone was like, this is going to stop all gun crime ever.
I think we know the answer to that. Or was it always about politics rather than policing? For Rebel News, I'm Sheila Gunn-Reid.
Yeah, Sheila Gunn-Reid's a fucking airhead, bro. I think I say that every fucking time. But she is on one. Everyone over at Rebel News is fucking on one. Let's just be real. Perez Hilton had a disturbing breakdown, apparently. We can get into that. I gotta go pee and take a break, so yeah. Just chill out and we'll BRB.
calling about an extra fee.
All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm back. That's what we call a hydration break around these parts. Anyway, we're going to listen to Power in Politics. That's a fucking extremely long Power in Politics, 33 fucking gosh darn minutes. We're going to play this at 1.5 speed. Hope that's okay for everybody. If you get lost, or if I get lost, just let me know in the comments or tell me why I'm stupid. You know, let's go.
We begin with the fast approaching deadline for the latest tariff threat. U.S. President Donald Trump's 50% levies are to hit some Canadian goods.
Okay, I'm sorry. I can't take this seriously. All right, 1.10.
In just 2 weeks, unless there's some kind of deal. Today, the Prime Minister was asked if Canada should change its strategy.
This is a negotiation, and this is not the time to change. We have time. We have real constructive negotiations that are happening.
All right, the CBC's Kate McKenna is following this. She joins me now. Kate, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us.
McKenna.
Prime Minister gave a little more information today about what Canada's goals are at the negotiating table. What stood out to you?
Well, I do want to underscore that it was truly just a little more information. Just a little more information. He really is holding his cards close to the chest on this one, but he confirmed that he personally is quite involved in the ongoing talks. We heard in that clip, once again, not ruling out potential retaliation, and also saying that they're not just talking about this new tariff threat, this new 50% threat on about $28 billion of Canadian exports. They're also talking about how to get relief for tariff-stricken sectors. We're talking about steel, we're talking about aluminum, we're talking about wood, we're talking about autos. All of those things are currently on the table. That sort of jives with what we've been hearing, the sparse details that we've been hearing from U.S.-Canada Trade Minister Dominic LeBlanc, who described his conversation with his American counterpart last week as comprehensive. We know that's what they want. We don't know what they're getting at this time. You know, he was asked straight up, do you think that we're going to get a deal ahead of this August 19th deadline? And he said, we'll see. So these negotiations still underway. Canada really, both in public and behind the scenes, not wanting to tell people, not wanting to tell journalists exactly what is on the table, what they're dealing with, but saying that, you know, progress is happening behind closed doors. Whether or not we'll see that in the form of a deal by August 19th.
I don't know how I feel about this green
and the reason we're talking
chat.
about this so much is that Minister LeBlanc has returned to Washington, his second time in 2 weeks. What do we know about some of the meetings that he's been having in his time in Washington?
So his office did confirm some of the meetings that have happened. He's met with 2 Republican senators, Bill Hagerty and Kevin Cramer, as well as the U.S. National Association of Manufacturers. We're still waiting to see whether or not he's going to meet with his counterpart, Jamieson Greer, as he did last week. It's interesting, though, Katie, all of the sources that I've been speaking to over the last 48 hours have highlighted to me that this is an open-ended trip. He hasn't
I like how they
booked
show the photos of like these intense negotiations.
That maybe isn't fully booked,
negotiations with a bunch
but
of old
could be happening
farts
behind the scenes.
farting around.
Are these probably these
water.
are not the only?
What is that? A drink bar, maybe some protein bars, some water. I got the family on the screen. Like, this is not an intense meeting. Let's just be real. This is a you're going to kiss Trump on the ass meeting. Those are my orders. What are you going to do about it? Meeting.
The negotiations that are happening, because these are not the people who would be able to make decisions on behalf of the U.S. government. So something that we're tracking for sure. The other thing, there was reporting in the Globe and Mail today about potential export quotas on steel and aluminum metals. I had also been hearing some of that from sources that those discussions were happening. But two government sources told me today that that does not reflect the current talks that are being held between Canada and the U.S. These things are very much in flux as well. Jenna Charette, the top Canadian negotiator, also at these tables. But certainly remains to be seen. I mean, we'll be tracking this all week, depending on what other meetings.
The Global Mail. It doesn't make any sense for the flow of goods to stop during this meeting. If that happens, then we got a serious problem.
Meetings Dominic LeBlanc is having.
Yeah, meeting with Senator Kevin Cramer. Canadians have met with him many times. He's viewed as a friend of Canada. He's a close ally of Donald Trump. But in terms of sort of, changing the tone and getting things done,
Kevin O'Leary, get Kevin on here.
Close with President Donald Trump, but at the same time, that so far has not necessarily worked. Kate, I suspect we'll talk tomorrow, and I suspect we'll talk on Friday too, because who knows? So thank you very much for your time today.
Those fake teeth, her gums look like so
as
fake.
Kate said, Prime Minister Mark Carney is saying it's time for trade talks to intensify. But
They
with
both
the
look kind of fake, to
deadline
be honest.
quickly
This AI.
approaching, what options does Canada really have? Jean Charest is the former Premier of Quebec and a member of the Prime Minister's Advisory Council on Canada-U.S. economic relations. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mr. Charest. I just want to start with a question about, this is the second trip for LeBlanc and Ms. Charette in 2 weeks. How do you read that?
A trip a week, huh?
I think it's a good signal, and all of this comes from the last announcement of President Trump for a new wave of tariffs, with a deadline of the 19th of August. A conversation between President Trump
I was on the advisory
and Prime
committee.
Minister Carney, where they both agreed to engage in more intense negotiations, and that is exactly what is unfolding at this point.
What does that even mean?
For us in Canada is
More
to have
intense
a
negotiations.
comprehensive discussion on the overall relationship, as opposed
Who can bluff
to
the
just
best? Who can bluff
engaging
hardest?
on single issues where the American side just whittles away on different positions. So overall, I think it's a positive sign, and I'm not surprised, by the way, that they want to keep their cards very close to their chest, given the volatility of some of the people involved. It's probably a good idea to advance the discussions and to speak up when there are things to deliver.
Something you mentioned in that answer, talking about, how the Americans will focus on a single issue and Canada needs to come in with sort of a broader approach. I don't want to describe it as Groundhog Day, but it kind of seems to be this trade war Groundhog Day where the Americans come in, they make a big, bold threat, and Canada has to try to find a way to escape the threat while at the same time trying to keep Kuzma alive. How does Canada turn the tables? How does Canada change that power dynamic so that it's not constantly having to just try to fight back like this?
And the word power dynamic describes it very well, Katie. The Americans are a superpower, and they're much bigger than we are. We have to be more strategic, we have to be smarter, and we have to be patient. And that's what I'm seeing right now. And what does that mean? It means that rather than just engaging on a piecemeal basis, we need a broader discussion. We always have wanted to have a discussion, Katie, that would include defense, security, strategic minerals, not just a specific tariff. And if you roll all of that in, that it makes sense that we have an agreement that speaks to the interest on both sides. And the other part of it, frankly, is that we have to be patient in the sense that we could sign a deal today. We could probably sign a very bad deal today and live with that bad deal a very long time, as opposed to accepting the fact that, yes, there's going to be some uncertainty, but better to be very perseverant, very resilient, stick at it, and make sure that we bring them constantly back to the broader relationship and get a good deal for both sides.
Okay, something you said in that answer that stands out to me is what you're describing is the approach that you would suggest Canada take. That was the approach that Mark Carney took at the start when he first became Prime Minister. He wanted...
Right, just wait it out forever. There's a few things there that I think are kind of important. The bad deal narrative is important. We're not going to sign a bad deal. That's why we're waiting so long. Narrative kind of, eases you into like, oh, this makes sense. Obviously, we're not going to sign a bad deal. The second part is fighting and persevering and being resilient. To me, just signals that more pain is coming. Canadians are going to have to bear up, and workers always bear the costs whenever struggle happens. So struggles are coming because of the volatility that's happening. But let's keep it moving.
To go to the White House to have a conversation, reach some sort of like broader economic, defense, strategic sort of plan, while at the same time, make sure that CUSMA gets renewed and that all stays the same. But that sort of blew up last summer after the meeting in Kananaskis, and that kind of proposal was made. Deadlines were missed. Everyone was hoping that Canada could sort of achieve something like that, but it blew up. It didn't work. Are you saying that the Canadian government in this moment has gone back to that approach, the one that blew up last year?
We always stayed on that approach. The difference in what you're describing is that we were engaged, then disengaged. Now we are re-engaged. And this is from a conversation that the president had with Prime Minister Carney. It was after his announcement of this new wave of tariffs. There is a deadline.
We have an on and off relationship.
Everywhere, but in the American political system in particular, Katie, and you know this very well, a lot of happens if there's a deadline that you're working against. We have the 19th of August. So I'm encouraged by the fact that we are re-engaged. Both Janice Charette and Dominique Leblanc are on the ground and doing the work that needs to be done. We just have to be very, very resilient as we do this. Overall, we continue to have the best relationship of all countries, though it's not a great consolation when you know the fact that we're suffering in the steel sector, aluminum maybe a bit less. In the forestry sector, it's a pretty bad situation right now overall in Canada, and I can tell you here in Quebec, where I'm from, it's pretty dire. But if we're perseverant, we can probably arrive. And there are things working for us. There are midterm elections coming up. Cost of living is a big issue. Tariffs contribute to increasing the cost of living. There's the conflict with Iran. That is also a contributor to some of the grief that is felt by American consumers. If you add all of this together, there are good reasons on the American side to come to a conclusion with Canada and send a positive signal to their own consumers that they're making progress on some issues.
And I just want to...
I don't think that matters. I don't think they give a fuck. I don't think, you're assuming that they're being rational. I don't think Trump or his admin give a single fuck what the people think of him. His polling rate is the lowest in history. It's 30%. Doesn't matter. He's in power for the next, 4 years or whatever. So it's a tough one. It's a roughie. Sure, it'll be harder to pass stuff, but they could still probably do it somehow. Trump, they're shoving the fascist agenda down your throat.
Clarify something you said in that answer as well. All of your answers here seem to be wielding new information, and I greatly appreciate that. Are you saying that after that phone call that President Trump and Prime Minister Carney had, that actually restarted a conversation to get back to a broad discussion about a broader defense, economic, security kind of deal?
That phone call resulted in us re-engaging. Now, you go further by saying...
I don't know what that means, re-engaging.
Not necessarily on the American side, but from our perspective, yes. But the phone call did create an opportunity, a re-engagement on both sides in these negotiations. And that's what's happening right now. And both sides would be wise to keep their cards close to their vest, not get ahead of themselves. And this will be difficult, I know, for the media, but it's probably wise to keep this negotiation on track and make it productive. And there is a date of the 19th of August by which we need to come to an agreement.
Is that true?
What more can you tell us about that phone call?
Whoa. What's that?
It's the fakest phone call of all time. Remember that one?
Well, the American president seems to want to I think, further engage within the administration with all the actors. We're thinking of Secretary Bessent, for example.
How long is this guy on for? They have a fuck ton of people on. Jesus Lord.
I know there have been conversations with Secretary Bessent. Remember, he is the one who led the negotiations with China. He's the one who convinced in Mar-a-Lago a year ago to the American president to descale with China the tariff war that had engaged, that turned into an embargo. That is also a positive sign. It's a good sign.
Was
that
he
whole of
the important factor there? I don't think so.
In these negotiations,
the economic factors are more important than that douche.
Tell me more about who Scott Bessent has been engaging with. Has he been meeting with Dom LeBlanc? Has he been meeting with Janice Charette?
I can't confirm any meetings with Janice Charette or LeBlanc, but there have been conversations. I can tell you there have been conversations, which is a good sign.
What are you looking for over the course of the next 2 weeks to see signs of progress? Are we going to see anything publicly as this timeline ticks down?
The sides, and the Canadian side would be wise to avoid creating public expectations. I think they're working to get some progress and an agreement and not say or do anything that will be a distraction in these negotiations. All your listeners and you, Katie, who are in Washington, I mean, you know what I'm talking about. We have a very volatile situation on the American side, and that's just the way it is. So let's be strategic and let's be intelligent about this and make sure that as we're engaging, we're talking, that we not go out there and say or do anything that is going to become a distraction, and focus on the 19th of August and trying to produce an agreement.
If there isn't something that Canada can point to as a deal by August 19th, do you think Canada should, fight back with more retaliation?
Everything's on the table. Prime Minister's made that clear. Everything is on the table. We are one of the few countries in the world that's actually applied counter tariffs in the automotive sector and elsewhere. We haven't.
That's not a good thing. As he just stated earlier in this interview, tariffs hurt people. So why are we counter tariffing if they hurt me, the consumer, and I have to pay a higher tax? Because taxes get borne onto the consumer. Because why would I, as a capitalist, take that into my... Why would I pay for that? No, you're paying for that. Okay, so why would we do that? Just to fight back? Is that... It just means more pain for the working class. It just means more lost jobs. Businesses downscaling, try to be more efficient, etc.
We've continued with that, and by the way, when we do that, Katie, just to be clear, we're very aware we hurt ourselves. We know that, but it's part of what we need to do to be able to defend ourselves. So everything remains on the table, and
if we hurt ourselves, we will defend ourselves. There is some truth to the defending of jobs on the tariff narrative, because it means, it's harder for foreigners to sell, or it's harder for imports to come into Canada, right? And you buy Canadian. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're saving jobs. You might be saving jobs in one sector, but you might be costing other jobs. Who knows how many other jobs in other sectors around the economy. So is that loss rather than this gain in this specific sector? I don't necessarily believe so.
We just have to be very perseverant. If we don't get a deal on the 19th of August, we continue to be the country that has the best treatment among all countries. Not a great consolation if you're affected by tariffs in steel, aluminum, or the forestry sector, but still, that's the situation.
My forestry companies are really going under, Chad.
We just have to keep
really going to shit
working
now.
at it until we finally come to a conclusion.
Is there any other news that you'd like to share with us, Mr. Charest? I feel like we got some more insight. It's been so hard to get information, and because I do this every day, it's been so hard to get information about what's going on. And on one hand, I understand the strategy and it makes sense, but at the same time,
thanks for sharing.
Prime Minister Mark Carney says Canada has options if a trade deal with the U.S. isn't made soon. But until then, he says Canada will stay the course in negotiations.
We will do everything that proves to be necessary.
We literally just watched this.
50% tariff
change.
U.S. President Donald Trump's 50% tariffs on a variety of Canadian goods, they are set to go into effect in just 2 weeks. And provinces are drawing their own red lines on negotiations with the U.S. as well.
Make no mistake, our resolve is firm that any sort of move on alcohol is...
Why is there all British flags behind him?
With the United States.
All right, it is time for the Power Panel. We are joined by Amanda
Power
Alvaro.
Panel.
She's a former Liberal Party communications strategist. And in our Ottawa studio, we've got Tim Powers, who worked as a strategist for Conservative parties, and Jordan Likeness is a former NDP strategist. Welcome, everybody.
This is what I wanted to watch, the Power Panel. Who gives a fuck about that first 15 minutes? Let's just be honest. Who gives a damn? Anyway, I need a hydration break screen. That's what I need to make, but we're going to have another hydration break, okay? This is the hydration panel we've been waiting for. Power Panel. All right, everybody, I'm back. We're ready. We're ready to dive into this goddamn power panel here and power and politics. All right. So we got a bunch of old farts going to tell us their opinion, and let's see how they're right about should Canada change track at the negotiation table. We just watched 15 minutes of some guy at the negotiation table, I don't know, advisor, fart for like 15 minutes. If you're interested in that, watch the VOD, but I think I'm going to cut this part and put it up on YouTube. But anyway.
Let's start. Amanda, tell me what you make of Dom LeBlanc's second trip to Washington in 2 weeks. You know, if he doesn't get a meeting with members of the administration, is it even worth it?
Well, I think what we're hearing is that he's meeting with lawmakers and industry leaders and people who can apply pressure and can influence. And that's how good old-fashioned diplomacy is done. And I think that face-to-face time is really critical. I mean,
oh my God. Good old-fashioned face-to-face diplomacy. I just cringe so hard. I've never seen someone so excited for diplomacy. Oh my fucking God, I can't with this, because this poor woman, this poor girl thinks that, like, these negotiations matter, that somehow Canada is fighting back strategically. Canada is what's going to do. Canada is going to do what is best for its own capitalist class, its own industry, its own economy. None of these meetings really matter that much. To apply pressure, perhaps, but anything that's we're applying pressure for is coming at the behest of capitalists, all right? It's like, come on, bro.
a deal that's worth trillions of dollars is not going to be made in a single meeting. We know this. It's going to take a lot of time and a lot of effort. And yes, businesses want certainty, but they also want to know that we're getting the best deal for Canadians to protect manufacturers and workers and exporters for years to come. So I think these are the right signals, being on the ground, getting those influential circles aligned, using every pressure point that you possibly have to continue these negotiations with the U.S.
Tim, the Prime Minister says that now is not the time to change course. What do you make of that? Do you agree with him?
Well, I don't think we know enough to agree or disagree, right? I
mean,
you
those red
cover
shoes,
this every
though.
day.
What are we talking about, buddy? Who gave you these red shoes? You don't think I'm going to clock those red shoes right here? Oh, my webcam is blocking it. Buddy. Hold up now. Are we going to not talk about these red shoes, homie? Dude. You don't think I'm going to clock these on the news? You don't think... You think just because I watch the news, I'm not going to clock that you are wearing bright-ass red shoes for no reason? Why? Is he part of the Bloods or something? What the fuck is this? Anyway. Keep going.
Well, I don't think we know enough to agree or disagree, right? I mean, you cover this every day. You know more than the three of us do. And half the time, or probably more than half the time, there's just a barrage of misinformation or uncertainty, particularly coming from the White House. So where are we in all of this? Who knows? I mean, by old metrics, you might say constant trips to Washington. And the frequency of those trips increasing is a good thing. But you're dealing with Donald Trump, and you've been in the Oval Office. You know that's a carnival ride with its own dimensions. I mean, I think Dom LeBlanc, Janice Charette, Doug Ford, anybody, the more we talk to Americans, more...
Also, I think this narrative of like, oh, Donald Trump's crazy. Donald Trump, he's so volatile. We don't know what we're going to do. I think this narrative, one, bolsters the fact that kind of makes... Listen, it makes the narrative for Carney's strategic approach more digestible for the average person. But I don't think Trump is as stupid as he claims. He has a whole team. He has a whole institution behind him. He has donors behind him who want certain things. This Canada stuff isn't coming from nowhere. They want certain things from Canada, right? So I don't think it's just because willy-nilly. This is just because Trump is Trump.
Americans, more American leaders, particularly in swing states, and senators and Congress people from swing states. That's all vital stuff. Go talk to Dana White, for God's sake. That might help us. The UFC promoter, he talks to Trump all the time.
I think they're together on stage today in Vegas.
There you are. Just don't get into ultimate fighting. All to say, it's hard to tell. It was interesting today, though, or it may have been last night, the Globe story that came out where perhaps deliberately, Katie, some information leaks suggesting, well, here's what we might be doing on steel and aluminum. And in part, that maybe a test balloon for the Americans, but equally it's to show Canadians, I think, those who may be agitated, that they are working on things, that they are looking at solutions. But again, I suspect August 19th will come and go, and there won't be necessarily a hell of a blah over all of that. That will still be in this place of uncertainty. Things may get moved out, and maybe that's the win we should be looking at now.
Jordan, what do you think?
Introducing the Economist Play.
What? So the win is what we are removing from the deal? Sure. Okay.
Well, I think it's too early to know really what the intensifying meetings mean, because of course anything can be happening in those conversations. I do think though.
Carney stares intently. Can you imagine?
That the intensity of the contact represents a change from what we've seen from the Carney government over the last few months. Since the fall, there's been a real backing off, and sort of space was given and everything was really left. What we're seeing right now, of course, is in response to the wave of new tariffs that's been announced for the end of the month. And I think that you're also seeing among the Canadian public growing support for some kind of a pushback against the Americans. The Carney government has given a number of unilateral concessions to the U.S. over the last year. So things like the digital services tax, and just last week, of course, canceling the requirement for profitable streaming services like Netflix to contribute to Canadian content. So these are things that Canadians see that we're giving these things away. We're not necessarily getting anything back tangibly from the Americans.
I mean, you're getting
in fact,
Netflix.
We're now being hit by
with more.
You're getting like better Netflix, dude. Come on.
Another round of
But
tariffs.
wait, there's
So
more.
It's not clear that it's transactional.
Yeah.
That we, it's not a logical relationship where we give something and we get something back. And so I think that means that the Carney government is likely pursuing several tracks at once. They're in these talks, they're in these negotiations, but you also see the Prime Minister out taking a bit of a harder line in terms of what he's saying about the potential for retaliation if it comes down to that.
That's something that came up with one of the provinces today in Ontario. The finance minister.
I think the retaliation narrative is all just bullshit posturing. I think it's all just posturing. Canada is so small compared to the USA. The USA is a superpower. Canada is cheeks comparatively. If we're going to escalate with a superpower, it doesn't seem great for Canadians. It doesn't seem like a good idea.
There said that there's a red line around the alcohol ban there. Amanda, do you think that we do know that the Trump administration is irritated with those alcohol bans, and that's part of their retaliation upon retaliation strategy when this trade war ratchets up? Do you think that the provinces? I know that it would be deeply unpopular with Canadians, but in order to maybe start a constructive conversation, should Canada be offering up? So should the provinces maybe back away from some of those booze bans as a way to sort of maybe foster a goodwill moment with the Americans? Is it worth it?
I mean, perhaps, but it's so hard to say. And I think some of the most important progress is and can be completely invisible to us. It's negotiations and talks that are happening in closed door meetings that we won't know about until an agreement.
Listen, the fucking alcohol ban is also ridiculous because at the same time, it hurts the economy. It's just like, okay, you get less choices at the store. You get less choice as a consumer about what goods you're buying. And then on top of that, sorry, I just lost my train of thought. What the fuck?
Is and can be completely invisible to us. It's negotiations and talks that
the Americans, is it worth it?
Progress is and can be complete. I think some of the most important progress is and can be completely invisible to us. It's negotiations and talks that are happening in closed door meetings that we won't know about until an agreement is reached. I
totally lost my train of thought, but basically you get a shittier choice at the store. And tax dollars are lost. That's what I was thinking of. Tax dollars. I was like, if people are buying their favorite American alcohol, doesn't that tax revenue still go to the Canadian like us? So it's just shitty. It is a way to fight back, quote unquote, but you can't say it's not shitty still. It's not a shitty situation.
It was also interesting to hear some of the critics saying, like, how many trips is too many? And it's like, well, as many trips as necessary to get this deal done. And whether that includes members of the provinces or it's the negotiating team of Carney's office, whatever it takes. But this is about preserving relationships. It's about narrowing those differences. And it's really about creating the conditions for a deal. But again, whether or not alcohol is on the line, or we know that the prime minister created his own red line last week when he talked about, energy not being on the table. Sounds like alcohol as an irritant is one that may be working a bit. So maybe they're leaving it there. I don't think this is all about Canadian concessions. I think
if Doug Ford's strategy of cutting off electricity to the United States' towns works, it's not going to work. That's an insane escalation.
the government has pushed back where they feel they can push back. But again, this only time is going to tell where this deal lands.
Earlier in the program, we did an interview with Jean Charest, and he seemed to reveal new details about what was going on, because so much of what is happening is not being shared publicly. One thing I do know is from our coverage in the U.S. is every time it really irritates the Americans when the Canadian media shows up outside the offices of Howard Lutnick.
You don't irritate people, do you, Katie?
I am so loud. I am so irritating.
This is hard to believe.
Oh no, it actually hasn't been me so much lately. It always happens when
Hunter.
it's who's loud, the loudest man in the room.
That's right.
My loud voice doesn't irritate him at all. But it's one of the, so the Americans have stated to the Canadians that it's something that they don't appreciate, and so that's why I think that because it's such big news in Canada that we sort of, the way we treated NAFTA negotiations back during Trump 1.0, we sort of did it like hockey updates. We're like this and this and this. It was so like because it was so vital to the Canadian economy, and it means so much more in Canada than it necessarily does in the United States. Yes, it's important for the American economy and the certain American sectors, but certainly the news cycle is so much bigger and faster there that it doesn't get the same kind of attention. But to the point, I'm getting to an actual question here, Tim. We heard from Jean Charest, who shed new light talking about how Scott Bessent is involved. I don't think we knew much about that, if we did know anything about that. But he also seemed to talk about sort of going in with a broader goal. He didn't say that we're exactly rehashing an attempt to get a security and economic kind of deal here. But do you think that there's any sort of merit in Canada saying, okay, listen, you guys put forward all of these little things you have issues with. You want to put tariffs on this. You've got tariffs on the steel sector, all these different industries, and we're still trying to save CUSMA. Do the Canadians need to go in with one big, broad sort of like picture solution here? Or is it just you got to hit every single irritant at sort of the root of it?
I'm sure they have a number of scenarios. In every trade negotiation, you have a number of scenarios, and you look at where you can get.
See, to me, the broadness indicates they don't know where the fuck this is going or what they could give up. The broadness indicates to me is that you have not narrowed down to do or what strategy to take. You haven't narrowed down an exact approach, which I guess you could blame Trump for, but you should at this point have a certain strategy other than waiting.
Get your early wins. What's going to be more difficult to do? I think for a lot of people in Canada that are impacted now in auto or steel or aluminum, they would like a reprieve. So if there's victories to be had there, why wouldn't you go for those first? I mean, from everything Donald Trump has said, and again, it varies from moment to moment, as you know better than anybody, it is hard to think that a big comprehensive approach is going to work right now. Find wins, build trust, find allies if you can. And there are probably still some in the administration and people from different states who are helping those in the administration, but I don't think there's one perfect strategy. And that's why, though the opposition's job is legitimately to criticize the government and say, what's your negotiating approach? The government should say, shag all about it. They should take the heat that they're getting from the media and others, because the worst thing they could do is dump it all into the public realm, because that only benefits Donald Trump and the U.S. administration and perhaps causes more irritation than any benefit it provides.
Mm-hmm. Jordan, if Canada can't get out of this new tariff threat with the 50% on,
they're not. We can't.
Canadian.
I think tariffs are here to stay forever until Trump is done.
Is it time to look at more supports for industries that are going to be hit by these?
Oh,
Absolutely.
give me a break.
And also more supports for the workers that are impacted, not just by these new tariffs, but by the initial waves of tariffs as well. You know, the effects of those haven't necessarily been felt equally across the country. They've been very acute, particularly in places like southwestern Ontario and Quebec, some parts of northern Ontario as well. And in a lot of cases, the government has made some effort to go out of their way to support the industry. But really, a lot of the people who are employed in those sectors, who are facing layoffs or job uncertainty, haven't received the same level of urgency for assistance. So that's something I think that the government is going to need to fold into their considerations here if that comes to pass. But of course, I think that their efforts are well directed right now in trying to.
And see, this is also like a stupid approach for someone who claims to be like pro-working class NDP. Like, you're supposed to be, look at the question, like, oh, do you support the small businesses? Think about the small businesses. She's like, oh yeah, but think of the workers, etc. Think about their jobs. It's like, as someone who is a working class representative, you should understand that jobs are nothing but exploitation. And she's right that workers don't get the same attentiveness as capitalists do in times of uncertainty and depressions or declines in the economy. We could have said no. I don't give a fuck about the fucking small businesses, stupid businesses. We live in a oligarchic, fucking monopolistic market. Small businesses are already struggling, and the people with the most wealth are profiting even more. And everyone else at the bottom, the working class, gets fucked over. And we should have some sort of third-party alternative, but she's not going there.
Prevent those from coming into force. The fact that there was a delay between the president's announcement and the imposition of the tariffs is an opportunity for the government to push back. And I think that there is an appetite, not just among Canadians, but among many premiers, to take a bit of a stronger stance. And again, that we've really seen that those preemptive concessions have not garnered Canada better treatment. And so if you want a different result, they may be looking at different means to get there.
There is a political calculation that we have to sort of take a look at. And Amanda, I want to ask you about if there's no sort of deal and Canada does get hit again.
No deal.
At the end of this month, we've got 3 by-elections coming up. Could this be something that ends up, I know that at least 2 of the seats are expected to go Liberals' way, but could this pose a bit of a challenge for the Liberals?
I don't think so. I don't think so at all.
If this is like another blow by the Trump administration to Canada?
No.
Do you owe more than $10,000?
No, I would really struggle being that. Because I think the common average Liberal is hooked by the Trump is insane narrative and volatile narrative. So if Carney doesn't get a deal, I don't think they will blame him and look at him as a failure. I think you go, well, at least we didn't kiss Trump's ass and give up the farm, whatever you want to say, in like hockey terms.
I mean, I still feel like Canadians are on side with the Prime Minister and the Prime Minister's approach. And you look at the polling, and it doesn't suggest in any way that Canadians are losing faith or trust in this approach. I don't see that changing in the next 2 weeks. I think that the volatility of Trump, the impression that people have of Trump, the fact that everyone agrees that, at any given moment on his whim, things could go one way or another. I don't think that the Prime Minister is going to be held accountable as early as those by-elections, but it's certainly a consideration. And I think what they want to show, even if it doesn't land on the 19th, is that talks are continuing, progress is being made. I think that's why it's so important that LeBlanc is seen in Washington right now. And I don't expect that on the 19th, all of that is going to shut down. If anything, those conversations will continue to ramp up, and that will be displayed to Canadians as well.
Okay, Tim and Jordan, I want to ask you really quickly about that. Do you think either of that, Tim, you go first, that'll have any effect on the by-elections at all?
I can't be as articulate as Amanda ever. I'll just give you a comprehensive no, won't have a damn impact at all. The only thing that might impact it if the converse were true. If suddenly Trump changed his approach and agreed to everything in Canada, all that has been empowering the Prime Minister, and the hatred that, or not hatred, but the disdain and frustration Canadians have towards the U.S. president that has helped Mark Carney may dissipate, but that ain't going to happen before August 19th.
Yeah, I think for voters that are concerned primarily about what's happening with Trump and tariffs. Anytime Trump rears his head and puts more pressure on that issue, it does seem right now to favor Prime Minister Carney, in part because the Conservatives have really not gained any traction on that issue. But I do think that there are other groups of voters, and particularly younger voters, maybe in more urban areas, who are really concerned about things like the cost of living, who might have concerns about the Prime Minister's moves on issues like climate change and might disagree with some of those. And a by-election where there is at least one safe Liberal seat, probably two in there, where they can make those views known without changing the government might be attractive to some of them.
Okay, we are going to switch gears a little bit here, and we are going to chat about the news that Prime Minister Mark Carney made today when he was asked to weigh in about calls for FIFA President Gianni Infantino to resign after a recent controversy involving Infantino's plan to sell off parts of FIFA's commercial interests.
I don't care about this FIFA shit. 3 minutes on FIFA, whatever. Bullshit. Anyway, what do you guys think? Should Canada change track? Change course? Should we just stare at Trump intensely until he breaks? What should we do? The conservative case for Doug Ford is the claim he's not conservative based on facts or feeling.
Carry out your cravings with.
Let's watch this. We love some Brian Lilly. This is like my Lily Unleash, but early. This is Lily on crack, apparently. I don't care about SpaceX slamming into the moon that much, or this shit. What else has Lily been posting? Does he have any bangers recently? A day ago, Jason Kenney isn't coming for Pierre's job. No, this is probably going to be the most poppin' one, so yeah, let's watch Brian Lilly. Is Doug Ford a conservative?
Not a conservative.
All right. Brian Lilly, what do we have to talk about Doug Ford? Now, Doug Ford, as we all know, has been gushing over Carney. We all saw them getting buddy along together. And all of a sudden, one of Ford's projects got, fell through. They don't care about it. And we'll see. We'll see what Doug Ford does, but is he a conservative? I don't know what this take is going to be from Brian Lilly, because is the take going to be you have to be like a mega fascist to be a conservative now? Because like Carney and the Liberals have kind of shifted to the right and taken your neoconservative spot, but let's talk about it.
Doug Ford is not a conservative, right? That's what I keep being told. He's definitely not a conservative. He's a liberal. He's just like Carney. Is that reality? I'm here to say that, look, while I have criticisms of Ford and wish at times he was more conservative, the numbers don't back that up. Hi, Brian Lilly here. You read me at torontosun.com, and hopefully you're subscribing at brianlilly.com. The reason to subscribe, the algorithms keep changing with big tech and the big government in Ottawa run by the Carney Liberals. They keep passing more legislation that is cracking down on internet freedom of speech. So make sure you subscribe. brianlilly.com. You'll get all my work when I'm on, sent directly to your inbox. So again, do that. Now, about Doug Ford. Is he the most conservative premier out there? Is he the most conservative politician? No. But he never claimed to be. The claim that Doug Ford was far right, and honestly, that's how he was described in the 2018 election by many people.
Far right.
That never held up to reality. And yes, I've heard the stories. His brother Rob, his late brother Rob, used to call him a pinko. Didn't think Doug was conservative enough like him. That's a problem in the conservative movement. You're not a real conservative.
That's a problem on the left, too. You're not left enough. You're not right enough. Hell is old as time.
Let's just go with some basics here. What do the numbers say? As I said, I've got lots of issues with Ford, and does he spend too much?
Sure you do.
Yeah,
sure.
He's increased the provincial budget dramatically. You know what he's never done? He's never increased taxes to do it. So he has expanded the economy, brought in more revenue while cutting taxes. He's cut several taxes. Could he cut more? I wish he would. But he's cut taxes. And by the way, the interest on the deficit and the debt
Yeah, but that's how you fucking get around not raising taxes, is borrowing money.
That Ontario has, it's a fraction of what the federal spend is. It's about 6.7 cents of every dollar goes to pay for the interest on the debt. That's like 13% at the federal level. They've been able to manage the money. A lot of credit for that goes to.
That is a insane comparison, Brian Lilly. You cannot compare all of Canada, the whole of Canadian revenues, to that. No shit, it's higher.
To Peter Bethlen-Falvey, who used to be work at Dominion Bond Rating Agency, worked in banking at high levels, knows his stuff. Ford has increased spending while cutting taxes and keeping an eye on where that spending goes. But I constantly am told that you should be more like Alberta and Saskatchewan. So let me show you something.
And more like Rebel News.
This is the total spending per capita. Ontario's in the blue, Alberta's in the orange, Saskatchewan is in the green.
Sure,
Ontario's per capita spend is just over $14,000. Alberta's per capita spend is just shy of $16,000, and Saskatchewan's is over $16,000.
We also have lower taxes in Alberta.
That
and
is a pretty good measure of, are you being fiscally sound? What's your per capita spend? Well, they spend more. Now let's look at.
Yeah, but we perhaps, like Alberta and Saskatchewan, perhaps spend more because like they have lower taxes there.
At health spending per capita in Ontario, about $5,500. Alberta's about the same. Saskatchewan, $6,000, and then per capita spending. This is not per pupil, although I should pull those numbers. $2,500 per capita on K-12 education, just under $2,000 in Alberta, and over $2,500 in Saskatchewan. What's Alberta and Saskatchewan? They're equal or lower on. Alberta is. What are they spending their money on elsewhere? I don't know. But Alberta has long spent more per capita than just about any other province.
Okay, Brian Lilly, you have to understand that the cost of living in Alberta is lower than in Ontario. Brian Lilly, do you understand that like Alberta has certain taxes that are lower than in Ontario? Perhaps that's why there's more spending. Brian Lilly, have you ever considered that?
Other than Saskatchewan. So why can you say that they're more conservative? Is it just the attitude and the vibes?
This is
I think
ridiculous.
A lot of it is. I mean,
the spending, debt spending or spending in general equals how conservative you
consider
are.
The fact, Saskatchewan anyway. They have a ton of crown corporations. They still have a government phone company.
Fucking nothing in Saskatchewan. Dude.
Yeah, they've got SaskTel. They say it's so that it encourages competition. But they have SaskTel. They recently got rid of their government-run liquor stores,
if you ever want to go,
which we still have in Ontario.
Go to Saskatchewan.
They've got a government-owned phone company. Really, it is just the vibes and the attitude. That is a major part of the difference.
Yeah, no shit.
Although, I hear from some people in Alberta that Danielle Smith isn't conservative enough. Again, this constantly going back and saying that people
at the
are
end of the day, it just
or
goes
not
back to you're not far
conservative
right
enough.
enough.
But
which
so
at the end of the day, it leads
let's
back
get
to you're
beyond
not
spending.
racist, bigoted, Nazism enough.
Ontario has a
far
woke
right just is
education
Nazi
system.
shit.
Why hasn't Doug Ford done anything about it?
You're not right enough. You're not.
I can tell you that he has, because I've covered a lot of the stories, including 2 + 2 = 4 being racist. That's something that a math teacher was pushing in the Toronto District School Board. Having spoken to Stephen Lecce, the former education minister, about this many times over the years, as I covered crazy story after crazy story, including the big boob teacher. Do you remember that story?
I do remember the big boob
guy
teacher.
who was showing up. Turns out he was punking the system. He was showing up claiming he was trans. He wasn't. He now shows up in cargo shorts and a golf shirt as a man to a different school. But to punk the system and show how ridiculous they were, he was wearing
to punk the
huge
system, or was he just an insane
breasts
person?
and a giant wig and little tiny spandex shorts, and showing up to teach shop class.
Much of what you're doing.
What does this have to
as
do
you
about being
journey through life
conservative? And why am I getting a fucking stupid Jordan Peterson ad?
Deck shorts and showing up to teach shop class.
We weren't allowed shorts.
They
in
actually
my
changed
shop
the
class.
legislation so that that can't happen anymore because the ministry asked
Shorts
the
in
school
shop
board
classes
in
got banned.
Halton, who's in Oakville, but the Halton Regional District School Board, they asked them, can you deal with this teacher? They said, no, we support her right to show up like this. They refused to act. Then the minister got
I mean,
in
just
and
because
ordered
someone
them.
looks like a pile of shit,
They
doesn't mean-
refused. Turns out the minister didn't have the legal
Listen,
ability
Brian Lilly,
to do that.
If we're gonna do, if we're gonna base it on, you should be fired because you look like a fucking weirdo. You can be one representative for that category, but like you could just tell her to wear something nicer. Who cares if her titties are ginormous?
So they changed the law. They've changed the law many times to give ministers more power
That's
to
ableist.
root out the wokeness and the crazy that has been embedded in the system. Then you look at Paul Calandra, the current minister. He's doing the same sort of thing. He's taken several school boards over, and he's not just imposing fiscal discipline. He's changing and rooting out the rot
yes.
where it...
That's what we need, fiscal discipline in our school systems so that our K to 12 know what it's like to live on a fiscally conservative budget, just being broke forever. Are you used to slop at lunch and using one pencil per semester per year? Hope you're ready for one notebook for all your classes.
is by getting rid of the school board trustees for a time and putting in supervisors that will make meaningful
No more
changes.
free lunches, baby.
You look at the fact that Doug Ford actually got rid of safe injection sites
Yeah, that's also
in
stupid.
much of the province, if not everywhere. And what they turned to, they brought in heart hubs. These are places where you can get addiction treatment. He did this against all advice from the Ministry of Health. He did this against the entire media in
'cause it's
Ontario that was
ridiculous.
saying this will lead to more people dying. Guess what? More
did.
people aren't dying. I'd say it's a pretty conservative thing to do that as well.
That source just came out of his butthole. Obviously, more people are dying. You dumb shit. It's like, where are they gonna? If they're not getting treatment, where are they gonna go? They're just gonna go find a source for their shit. Most likely, more dangerous, and they end up ODing. You know,
Expanding private access to healthcare. They have made it so that
yes.
you can get your cataracts done, knees and hips. They're moving to more MRI and CAT scans being done in private clinics, but paid for with your health card. That's a very conservative move.
that is a ridiculous move, by the way. If that's just a middleman to be public, why are you just cut out the middleman? Just nationalize healthcare, dumb fuck. Privatized healthcare makes no fucking sense. It's like, why profit off of healthcare? It's like, oh, I need my finger reattached. Well, do you have enough money? Well, I don't.
He's done that. So, are there problems with Ford? Does he strike and tick off every box for you? No. But as I've said to Premier Danielle Smith, you could not run Danielle Smith's campaign in Ontario and win. And that's something that she gets. That's something that Scott Moe would get.
Because Alberta is a fucking.
I would say that Scott Moe didn't even run a very conservative campaign. The Sask Party, by the way, is a coalition of free market people. It's a coalition of conservatives and liberals to fight off the NDP. That's how the Sask Party was born. That's how it's always functioned when it's operated well and been successful, which is
fighting the NDP.
Getting close to 20 years now.
Never won once.
So, is Doug Ford the most conservative person out there? No. Is he the most conservative person that could win in the past 3 elections? Yeah. And is Ontario different than Alberta and Saskatchewan? Yeah, for a start. They don't spend as much per capita, and they don't own a government phone company. Anyways, drop your comments down below. Tell me what you think.
I have to comment. Alberta/Sask have lower taxes. Perhaps that's why they spend more. Dirt. Yeah, we gotta add the dir at the end, definitely. There you go, Brian Lilly. Take that one. Let me reload this page as you responded. He liked my comment.
If you don't
imagine? No one likes my comments. I'm gonna upvote my own comments. Don't judge me. Let's watch. The commies are in control now. Comrades have infiltrated the Democratic Party, everybody. The comrades are here. They're here to reform the Democratic Party. Can it be done? Probably not.
I put together a guide that breaks down.
But let's talk about it, I guess. Because we're going to be talking about, I guess, Mamdani and communism. Even though this is fake communism, this is reformism. In other words, liberal socialism, social democratic socialism. Not real communism, but we're not going to get into that. But let's watch what they gotta say. Communism's coming.
Was a bloodbath. Finally, we have a winner.
You know, they think that you want to use my whole name against me. Mike, listen, man, if you can't say the name, it's Abdurrahman, keep the name out your damn mouth.
Well, I can't even say that name. That's why we call him Abdul. Last night, not a mirage, a commie sweep in the Wolverine state. Abdul beat the pantsuit off
the commie sweep.
Stevens. Don
the red wave is coming.
Like an unruly child, and we'll miss him the most, especially his hair. The machines calling it for what it is, a revolution, because they got flipped head over heels like grandpa teasing the bison.
The old model was you get the donors to get the consultants to buy a bunch of ads and you win. That's how you get attention. This movement says, I don't need donors, ads, I don't need consultants.
That's also what
I'm going
Mamdani
right
did.
to the people with TikTok and grassroots.
That's what fucking
the Democratic
Mamdani
Party
did.
is now Blockbuster. These kids are Netflix. We are selling CDs out the trunk. This is Napster becoming Spotify, and it's happening tonight.
This is the machine.
I mean, he's totally right. I mean, a crazy idea in politics. Go door to door and ask people what they want, and then be like, we're going to put that shit on our page, join our shit. Or just be like, hey, this is our shit. Free healthcare, higher taxes on the rich, people who make over $2 million a year or some shit, or whatever it is. But yes, the commies are coming for me.
It took out
and
Biden,
you, Chad,
Bernie,
they're
and
coming
Nipple
for
Nazi,
you.
but they couldn't handle Abdul, and they tried.
What Abdul had to do is take on the entire Michigan Democratic establishment. He took on the National Democratic establishment.
This is also what Mamdani did, by the way.
In a way that I have never heard of. I don't think anybody has. $60 million in super PAC funding. An unbelievable amount of money. Outspending him 9-1.
That is insane, by the way.
Anyone.
This was Bernie's revenge for Plattner.
Isn't that crazy, though? I mean, all the money in the world funded into whatever puppet you want. It's like these people who actually just go to the people with a good plan, and they're doing better than the establishment. Who would have thought? And that's what you need. You need a critical mass. Can you reform the Democratic Party? Probably not. There are limitations to this reformist approach, the limitations of capitalism, because at the end of the day, they're not leading a revolution to overthrow capitalism. They're just joining a capitalist party to basically ask for concessions from the capitalists to give to the workers, like benefits, higher wages, shorter work hours, etc.
And the machine's going to be sore for a while. Last night was a test. The commies proved that they could win on the coast, but now they've won in the Midwest. Bernie bros aren't just a Vermont and San Francisco fad.
No, I loved Bernie when I was growing up in Canada, dude.
First endorsers. Bernie Sanders, the OG who came in on day one, put his entire shoulder in the work. I just hope that I can help to carry some of that load in the fight for working people and Medicare for all that he's been carrying for all of this time.
Bernie's been wanting to take away your doctor since the 70s. And after Tuesday, he's a lot
Take away your doctor? That's an interesting spin.
closer. Sanders has been waiting for this moment his whole life. He crouched like a tiger until the party was at its weakest, then pounced, seeding primaries from the Bronx to Denver to the Upper Peninsula.
Is that what happened?
Schumer got
Bernie
his bell
masterminded the plot?
Didn't see it coming because his TDS blinded him.
You are giving Bernie way too much credit to like mastermind this revolutionary takeover of like a Democratic Party. Bernie has been stomped out by the Democratic Party time after time after time. Lots of people look up to him though, even though his fight has been largely rough. Let's say it should, give that way. For years, talking about the military budget. It's all right.
Bernie's the new machine's boss.
Mr. Carville doesn't want to be in my party, the party that I belong to, that Pica, that El Sayed belongs to. He can start his own party.
Hear that? Bernie said, my party. The independent, the
socialist.
It's
Bernie's
He's
party
not even
now.
a Democrat, but he is now. You know what they say. You are what you eat.
I think that's like, come on, bro.
Obama's, Biden's just got smoked by a cranky socialist senator from Burlington.
True, though.
By a guy who honeymooned in Moscow. There's only one man standing
The Bernie
in his
slander
way.
is insane.
They call him Big John.
And what I'm
Big
saying is, like, if you
John.
are a DSA member, if you are a member of a specific political party, run under your own banner. And now I think Bill Maher said something very insightful. He said, the DSA are colonizing the Democratic Party.
This is what also should happen, by the way. He is right. Fetterman, with as much as his brainworms have eaten away, not his brainworms, but as much as his brain damage has hindered his abilities to be a good Democrat. He is right here. It's like, why doesn't the DSA just start an independent party? Why are they taking over, want to reform the Democratic Party when like none of them are running on an anti-capitalist position. They're all running on reformist positions. Like none of them want a capitalist overthrowing to a more socialist type system, which is what an independent party should be advocating for if you're going to go more left to that.
So just be Democrats if you're going to run under the Democratic Party.
Democrats have been raging against colonialism since college, but now they're getting colonized, and what's their answer? Big tent. That's not what the Indians said. Trump likes the hoodies concept. Splinter off and split the vote.
Imagine being able to build an app with your name on it.
Split up the Democratic Party, sure.
I think they should form another party, the Communists of America Party.
That would be amazing. Can we do that?
They should have a new party, the Communists of America. And
that sounds dope, though.
Well, it'll get about 10% of the vote.
Honestly, I agree that they should start their own party. I think Mamdani and his crew, Bernie, if they really wanted to start their own party and be serious socialists, revolutionaries, it could happen, but I don't think any of them are willing to take the burden of that on, to be honest. Not gonna lie.
The commies run third party. They siphon votes from Democrats. So Democrats have to let them in the tent, but risk having the tent taken over. Throughout history, communists have
Republican
never,
tent,
ever compromised.
The Reagan tent got taken over by the Trump fascists.
Says they've already won.
I don't think it's about a democratic civil war, right? I think it's about reckoning with where the voters of this party are at. And the voters have made themselves abundantly clear that they want to change. And I think it would really behoove the party and people in the establishment to follow the voters where they're at and actually deliver on what they need.
Abdul's buddy.
That sounds like a crazy socialist commie idea.
Things up. It's time to kiss the ring.
Everyone being like, Abdul is a ton of work to
Hassan
do
on
mending
Fox
bridges.
News.
Here's the take nuke for you, okay? You are all unbelievably Islamophobic pieces of
all these freaks at the Democrats.
Is this what Fox News has resorted to now in inputting clips of Hassan's stream onto their Fox? Is that what they do now? That's crazy. That's actually insane. That's so insane.
Have swept under
Good
the
for
rug,
Hassan, dude.
gagged and sidelined for decades, are back with a bad attitude. They're tired of being used and abused by the machine, then told to sit in a corner after Election Day. Now, Biden gave him a window. He was so weak, they had the leverage to cut a deal. And look what they did with that little slice of power. They blew up the border, DEI, record spending, trans mania. Now the barbarians are the ones actually winning, not the Trojan horse. They're the ones with the face paint and torches and pitchforks. They're beating their chest and blowing the doors off the DNC.
I like how, like, Republicans do this thing where it's like, you are fear-mongering, being a snowflake about socialism, the same way that liberals are being snowflakes and, you know, whiny crybabies about your fascism. You know, you understand that, right? Like, you're being that liberal woke person, being like, you can't say that. You can't say you like communism.
Because they require a change in the establishment and in the way things are done to effectuate the changes you want to see.
If I could get on my knees and beg, it would be for exactly what you just said, because we are not going to win the other way. We lost that way in 24. I will not support hacks in the Democratic Party who have led us to this Waterloo.
These are the people you see in the streets, spitting at ice, torching Teslas. The party distanced themselves from this scene. These aren't the kinds of people you can bring around polite society. They don't care about 401ks. They want AK-47s. And no one is safe. All campaign, Abdul's been saying he's running to...
They want AK-47s. Aren't you the guys who fucking advocate for free gun rights? Everyone should own an AK-47?
So now
That's
that
a
he's the
crazy
nominee,
take.
Chuck going to just throw his money and wait behind him and pretend like they're cool? Chuck won't even say his name.
Look,
Chuck's mad.
In Michigan,
Chuck's
we
big
are
mad.
going to beat the Republicans. We're going to take Michigan, and we're going to win back the Senate.
Schumer doesn't have a clean way out of this. Remember,
Schumer's
they're not trying to flip
so
this seat.
cooked.
This is a Democrat seat that they have to hold. If
AOC's
Democrats don't
going
win
in.
the Senate,
Come on,
Schumer's going to
AOC,
lose his leadership,
right?
his fancy
Isn't
little
that how it
office.
works?
In 2 years, he's going to be out of a job. So he has to fund the man who
Probably
wants
not.
his head.
I saw
Has
shit
to.
about AOC going
It's
for
suicide
president.
by proxy.
That
But
would be
Schumer
someone.
could have a trick up his sleeve. He could pull a Plattner. Maybe Schumer's got dirt on Abdul, and he's going to drop it to force him out.
He's got
Switch
dirt
whiskey
on
sour grape
Abdul.
Stevens.
He's going to
Because
say
right
that
now,
he's
Schumer
working with Hassan
doesn't have a lot of
Piker,
money to
the
throw
worst dirt of all time.
The party's broke, and Abdul, not a sure thing.
Until Syed wins, I will not vote Democrat. I'll switch over, and I'll vote for a candidate with character, whoever that might be.
Not everybody in Michigan's feeling the Muslim fever. Abdul's not everybody's cup of tea.
As I was getting on the plane
fever.
this morning, a guy
Why
who's
does
a
it
big
matter
fan
if
of
he's
MS Now
Muslim?
said to me, I'm anxious to see who wins. And I said, oh, did you vote? And he said, yes, I voted for Haley Stevens. And I said, oh, why? And he said, well, because of Israel. And I don't like
Because
the
of
position that
Israel.
Abdul Sayed has on Israel. And in fact, if he wins, I will be
Israel
voting
was
for
the
Mike
swing
Rogers.
vote for this
Abdul
man.
has a lot of enemies, not just Jews. A lot of people think he's a tool.
Be ugly, and then I should be on a pike. And I'm like, Chief, I own mirrors. I know I'm an ugly guy. But if you want to put me on a pike, I mean, he has like a little man syndrome kind of energy.
So you think he could lose to Mike Rogers?
Oh, 100% that's possible.
Little man syndrome.
Without a doubt. I mean, the polling seems to indicate
That this ogre must use that
it
line
is in
a
danger.
lot of the time.
Abdul beat the machine, got outspent, worked hard, stayed on message, never apologized. You got to respect that. But half the Democrats in Michigan voted for somebody else, and blacks hate him.
And the blacks hate him. what the fuck? Dude, Fox News, I understand. It's so entertaining. The amount of just subtle racism, subtle bigotry, you know, it's impressive,
Troy
really,
went
how
for sour grape
fucking
Stevens, wasn't
awful
even close.
it
And he
is
lost
really to
whites who didn't go to
consume.
college, a lot of them. So Abdul has a lot of work to do. You can't win statewide with wealthy white liberal women.
Of course
Early
not.
voting in Michigan starts in 5 weeks.
We all know
Abdul
this.
came out of the gate hard.
My name is not raising your gas prices. My name is not taking us to war.
That's true.
My name is not the reason you can't afford your groceries.
Mhm.
You know what it is? They're BS policies. So he can point to my name all he wants. But I'll also tell you this. I've been an Abdul in Michigan my whole life.
Say what you want about Abdul. He's not Midwest nice. And Michigan went MAGA twice. So he's going to have to thread the needle. The Republican nominee is Mike Rogers. He's Army, former FBI special agent, congressman, born and raised in Michigan.
Hey, I can't. It's so funny whenever I hear people on Fox News like being woke snowflakes about what people say.
Not 100%
I thought they were
MAGA,
the
so
party
he's
of free
swing
speech
statey.
or whatever.
If Rogers wins, and he's up in the polls, the commie brand is going to be toxic. And Bernie is going to get blamed for Michigan
Nah,
and
the commie
Maine.
brand's coming back,
So the
dude.
battle for the soul of the Democrat Party is just getting started.
The red
and Trump
wave's here.
already dialed in.
Death, destruction, embarrassment. You lose your home, you lose your apartment. And
Is he
that's
talking
where the
about
communists will
communism?
take us
Oh, yeah.
100%. When I watch
The
Abdul,
communists are going to take your house,
he's full of
your toothbrush, your
MAGA's shown that
shoes.
it can win at the national level. The commies haven't come close. But they are
Communism
building
versus
momentum.
common sense.
Michigan is an
That's a
early
good one.
test.
That's a good
terrifying
AI
the Democratic
fucking
Party. And after the dust is settled, they
image there,
realize their money can't buy them elections anymore. That means they're going to have to rely on ideas, charismatic candidates, or their record.
Because Republicans don't spend money on elections. They would
They're
never.
drinking heavily.
Elon Musk does not
sure to
spend
like and
records amount on elections. No way. Yeah, Newell. Newell. Abdul's victory. It's interesting for sure. Mamdani and Abdul now. Very interesting. This wave coming from the New York, Michigan scene. It's interesting. I am all here for it. But again, it has its limitations. Reformism. We're not going to talk about theory though. What's on X now? What's trending on X? I haven't been on X in an hour. What's trending now on my news page? Trump calls continue. Yeah, nasty. Dearborn's Arbadine procession. Huh? What the fuck? Dearborn, Michigan. Oh, it's just people being racist about fucking Muslims. Yeah, whatever. Not really news. Yeah, everyone's scared of the commies. These other people keeping the liberals in power. Just like a bunch of old liberal moms. I think we're done with reacts for now. I think we're done with reacts. 410. Maybe we take a hydration break and we start. Do we game for 50 minutes? An hour? Yeah, I think that's what we're going to do. We're going to take another break and then we'll be back with a game of sorts. So stay tuned. Okay, oh goodness. Okay, everyone. Change of plans. I'm gonna end stream now. Been a good 2.5 hours of streaming. In keeping the theme, I want to keep my streams all one thing. So we reacted for 2.5 hours. This will be the react stream. Yesterday night was the DayZ stream. And then the next stream, we will get back with another gaming stream. So be prepared because we're going to be starting a new roguelite next game. So, or next game, next stream. So